Hello, my name is Chris, and I want to thank you for joining us for another value-packed TenantCloud podcast. Managing a team can be overwhelming. Keeping track of all of the tasks and projects on your plate is difficult, and it's easy to get distracted from your team goals and focusing on how you can help your team get to the finish line every single time. As a result, you may find yourself spending too much time trying to keep up with everything and not getting any actual work done. In today's podcast, we're going to cover how using effective team management principles and tools can help you manage your team more effectively, as well as handle the day-to-day operations of your business by organizing, delegating, and communicating with your team members as efficiently as possible. In today's podcast, we're going to cover these 6 simple tips that are going to help you increase your team's productivity. The first one that we want to cover is the ability to delegate. However tempting it might be for you to micromanage members of your team, and some of us more so than others tend to gravitate towards that, doing so can be extremely detrimental to progress in your company and your operations and growing your team. A good manager knows that you need to delegate work to others, and that means that you need to understand who is best suited to complete a particular task, as well as to assign tasks to employees based on their skill, experience, and their competency. It also requires ensuring an employee has the resources that they need to be successful, as well as to make sure that they're empowered to be able to make their own decisions along the way. You have to be able to trust that your team member can complete the assigned tasks on time as well. And ideally, every single team member on your team should have a similar workload whenever possible. Unfortunately, as surveys have shown, in fact, 21% of employees feel overwhelmed by their workload most of the time, according to a survey by Qualtrics.com. An improper delegation, it can cause employees to end up just straight up quitting. In fact, a Gallup survey found an unmanageable workload, quote unquote, is the second leading reason that employees state for being burnt out. One of the ways that you can help to mitigate this and to help delegate to employees and to track that delegation in the process as they complete tasks is by having tools in place that help you to streamline that. Number 2, organization is key. You may be responsible for overseeing things like budgets and tasks and making sure that day-to-day operations are done as they're expected to be, and juggling all those pieces and making the necessary adjustments along the way can typically require a high degree of organization. And if you are unorganized, then it can just ultimately result in complete chaos. And if it results in chaos for you, then that translates over to your team, and your team is going to be mixed into that same chaos as well. And so organizing and making sure that you have your day planned out, your week planned out, your month planned out, and making sure that you are focused on the tasks that you need to do, the small tasks, the small steps to reach the larger goals each day. Number 3 is you want to focus on serving rather than managing. And to some that may seem counterintuitive, but effective managers really do focus on serving their team rather than managing their teams. As a manager, you always have, or you should have, the best interests of your team members in mind, and you should always be looking to assist and support them in achieving both individual and team goals. And much of that comes from an attitude of service rather than an attitude necessarily of managing or overseeing. Number 4 is problem solving. No matter how well prepared or organized or established or whatever your processes are, you're always going to end up running into some type of issues. And so whether that is due to incomplete or even bad data, maybe it's a budgetary issue, maybe it's an unforeseen issue that was out of your control, there's controllables, there's uncontrollables, whatever it is, managers need to be skilled problem solvers, and that will translate over to your team. Because if you're not a good problem solver and you don't work at that skill set, then it's going to throw your entire team into chaos because now everybody's involved in a problem that nobody knows how to solve. So having the ability to think critically about potential situations and coming up with a response or a solution are extremely important with anybody who is managing a team of people. And not only that, but a team leader will typically be able to lead through action, not just words. So if you want your team to deliver excellent work and to go the extra mile, then you should set the example and do that first and do it alongside of them along the way. Number 5 is provide and focus on a clear vision. In a 2019 survey by hypercontext.com, a majority of managers stated that keeping their team on track to achieve goals was an important part of their role. Unfortunately, there are a lot of managers who get sidetracked because of their day-to-day routines and the things that they have to focus on throughout the day, their own goals that they have to focus on, and sometimes it can be distracting to maintain and focus a clear vision on the team's goals and not just your own personal goals. And so it's important to be able to focus not only on your own personal goals, but make sure that you're also focusing on the team's goals. And often if you can align the two, and hopefully many of the times they are aligned, then it makes it easier for you to track both. Number 6, be open to change. Things are going to change whether you like it or not. And sometimes you may not be right. Sometimes you might flat out be wrong. And your team members each bring valuable experience and unique insights to the table. So it's important that you listen to them. To be an effective manager, you have to be open to change, and you have to understand that things change and that you need to be able to adapt to those changes. And realizing that your team brings unique things and valuable things to the table. And so you need to be open to trying out innovative processes, innovative technologies, even if they're new, and just changing your typical methods of management, especially when it no longer produces the desired outcomes. It's easy to get stuck in a path, in a rut, in a routine. It's just something that most people typically gravitate towards as a routine. And sometimes it can be difficult to get out of those ruts. And so being open to change and having a mentality that is open-minded towards changing things and to improving things and constantly looking for ways to streamline processes and things of that nature is extremely important as a team manager. So in a day and age where we are hearing all about companies that are struggling to hire and retain top talent, and there are a lot of options for team members out there, and with all of the data that we have as it relates to surveys of team members and the things that they care about, such as communication, collaboration, effective team management, making sure that communication is coming from the top down to the team so that they understand what their goals are and how to achieve those goals, and they're getting the resources they need to achieve the things they need to as a part of their job description. All of those things play a role in hiring and retaining top talent. And so I just wanted to touch on some of those things today, and hopefully some of this information you found valuable and that you can take away and implement with your own teams, and maybe work on some of these things to make sure that you are being an effective team manager and team leader and doing all of the things that we just discussed. So just a quick recap. The first one is the ability to delegate, and not just to give orders, but to make sure that you are giving equal workloads across the board whenever possible, and only giving tasks and delegating things to those who are qualified based on their skill, experience, and competency. Number 2 is making sure that you stay organized and stay focused. 3 is make sure that you are serving rather than focusing on managing. If you're leading alongside your team by example, then that is what you want to be doing, not just managing, but serving your team. The next one is problem solving, making sure that you focus on solving problems and coming up with solutions to complex issues. You also want to make sure that you provide and focus a clear vision, not just for yourself, but for your team, and not get distracted by your own personal goals, but also focus on your team's goals as well. And last but not least, be open to change and not getting stuck in a rut and falling into that trap. And that concludes today's TenantCloud podcast. I hope you found value in the podcast. If so, please leave a comment wherever you were listening to this, and definitely share this with anybody who you feel may benefit from the information that we discussed. And we'll look forward to talking with you next time.